I can hear you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My name is Bianca. I would ask a question from a post-Muslim perspective, actually, explain today about terrorism, but terrorist attacks recently happened, allegedly happened, or they attacked under the name of Islam. But this really affects or upsets these people like communists. So how do you think about that?
Well, this is something that we spoke a lot about at the G20. The overwhelming majority of victims of terrorism over the last several years, and certainly the overwhelming majority of victims of ISIL, are themselves Muslims. ISIL does not represent Islam. It is not representative in any way of the attitudes of the overwhelming majority of Muslims. This is something that's been emphasized by Muslim leaders, whether it's President Erdogan or the President of Indonesia or the President of Malaysia, countries that are majority Muslim but have shown themselves to be tolerant and to work to be inclusive in their political process. And so to the degree that anyone would equate the terrible actions that took place in Paris with the views of Islam, those kinds of stereotypes are counterproductive. They're wrong. They will lead, I think, to greater recruitment into terrorist organizations over time if this becomes somehow defined as a Muslim problem as opposed to a terrorist problem. Now, what is also true is that the most vicious terrorist organizations at the moment are ones that claim to be speaking on behalf of true Muslims. And I do think that Muslims around the world, religious leaders, political leaders, ordinary people, have to ask very serious questions about how did these extremist ideologies take root. Even if it's only affecting a very small fraction of the population, it is real. And it is dangerous. And it has built up over time. And with social media, it is now accelerating. And so I think on the one hand, non-Muslims cannot stereotype. But I also think the Muslim community has to think about how we make sure that children are not being infected with this twisted notion that somehow they can kill innocent people and that is justified by religion. And to some degree, that is something that has to come from within the Muslim community itself. And I think there have been times where there has not been enough pushback against extremism. There's been pushback. There's some who say, well, we don't believe in violence, but are not as willing to challenge some of the extremist thoughts or rationales for why Muslims feel oppressed. And I think those ideas have to be challenged. Let me make one last point about this. And then, unfortunately, I have to take a flight to Manila. I'm looking forward to seeing Manila, but I hope I can